Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni Viewer, or as I will no doubt come to be known as, the one person in the entire world who still enjoys the DC Comics movies, or as we're apparently calling them, the DC Extended Universe. Unpopular opinion, I realize, but hey, that's why it's called an opinion. I happen to like Man of Steel, and I like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, and you have to admit, you're curious to see where they go from here too, even if you don't necessarily like the movies. So, much like I did for Marvel, I'll be doing a list of all the DC characters I'd like to see show up in the movies at some point. The same rule of no distaff counterparts applies here. So that means Batgirl, Supergirl, and by default Power Girl will not be on the list. Which is not to say I'm against them showing up, I just want to stick to characters with more original concepts than just based on another pre-existing character. And since DC already has all of its characters at one studio rather than spread out across multiple studios, the rule of no characters from other studios doesn't apply here. Instead, I'll be doing a different rule. No characters whose movies are already in development but are further down the road. So that rules out Green Lantern, who will be getting another movie soon, and it rules out any characters set to appear in Justice League Dark, which is still technically in development. Development hell, I realize, but still in development. So no John Constantine, no Swamp Thing, no Zatanna, no Spectre, which again, isn't to say I don't want to see them. In fact, I really want to see them, but since the movie is in development, they're not on this list. So all of that being said, let's begin. Here, in no particular order, are the 5 characters I'd like to see in the DC Extended Universe.
Number 1. The Creature Commandos.
So, in order to differentiate itself from that other superhero in a red, white, and blue costume who uses a shield, Wonder Woman is being set in World War I rather than World War II. I like that idea. After all, World War I isn't a setting you normally see superheroes in. But that doesn't mean DC can't eventually go to World War II. And might I suggest we start with the Creature Commandos. The simplest way to describe the Creature Commandos is a team of monsters created using science rather than magic as part of a Black Ops movement against the Nazis. They're comprised of Private Lucky Taylor, a Frankenstein monster, Sergeant Velcro, a vampire, Warrant Officer Griffith, a werewolf, Dr. Medusa, a Gorgon, and the only female member of the crew, and all of them are overseen by normal human Lieutenant Shreve, the most despicable man ever born. Now, the original comic is set during World War II, but it was written in the 80s, and the attitude is very post-Vietnam War, which is interesting because it winds up adding a very unusual shade of gray into what many people still consider a black and white conflict. Plus, the Creature Commandos were part of just one of many titles appearing under the Weird War series. You also had locations like Dinosaur Island, or other characters like G.I. Robot. You could also bring in the Blackhawks if you really wanted to expand it, or Sergeant Rock. They could make an entire World War II franchise just on those characters. Now granted, these guys are kinda similar to the Universal monsters, and Universal is trying to revive its horror properties for its own shared universe, so there might be a little contention there, but I think the Commandos are just different enough that if DC wanted to, they could get away with making a movie featuring them.
Number 2. The Question.
I know exactly what you're thinking, and you're wrong. The Question is not based on Rorschach. Rorschach is based on The Question. Get your facts straight. But who is The Question? The Question is Vic Sage, a reporter living in Hub City, the one place in the entire world worse than Gotham. Just think about that for a second. Hub City is a place where crime and corruption and conspiracies abound on pretty much every level. And as a reporter, Sage can only talk about it. That's why he dons a mask that gives him a faceless appearance and crushes these conspiracies as The Question. Like most of you, I first learned about The Question through Justice League Unlimited, where he was voiced by Jeffrey Combs. Instantly fell in love with the character in a totally manly way, and I've been tracking down the original comics ever since. Which is really hard to do, by the way. But frankly, if DC is going to stick with the darker tone they've been going with so far, the Question would fit right in. I dare say he would have been a better fit for the Dark Knight trilogy than Batman. And apparently I'm not alone in this. Kevin Smith recently said that he would want to make a Question movie. By coincidence, so would I. So, Kevin, if you happen to see this video, give me a call. We'll brainstorm.
Number 3. Raven.
Again, like most of you I'm sure, I first learned about Raven through the Teen Titans cartoon. The good one, not the current one. And again, I instantly fell in love because I was a very lonely teenage boy back then. Anyway, Raven is the daughter of Trigon, basically a stand-in for Satan, and she was born specifically to bring him to Earth. So she's devoted her life to fighting on the side of right in hopes that she can somehow change that destiny of destroying the world. Raven is a fascinating character. Some of the best episodes of Teen Titans were focused on her. And hey, if Cyborg is allowed to exist outside of the Teen Titans and get his own movie in the future, I don't see why Raven can't do the same either. After all, we do need more women in these movies, and I'm sure Wonder Woman will open the door for quite a few of them.
Number 4. The Sandman.
DC has had two characters go by the moniker of Sandman, although more recently they've been under the Vertigo banner. There's the one you all instantly thought of, and the one who came before him. The original Sandman is Wesley Dodds, a millionaire playboy kind of in the vein of Bruce Wayne, but not necessarily as rich. He is constantly plagued by prophetic nightmares of crime and catastrophe, and the only way he can deal with them is to take to the streets and dispatch some vigilante justice, armed only with a gun that dispenses sleeping gas. The other Sandman is the one you probably thought of first, the character created by Neil Gaiman, known as Dream, sometimes known as Morpheus. He is a cosmic entity, basically the god of dreams, which has led to some pretty surreal stories over the years, let me tell you. So, which of these Sandmen do I want to see in the movies? Why make me choose? I'd like to see both of them. I actually think they could both be in the same movie. The Vertigo comics did eventually reveal that it was Dream who was manipulating Dodds to have the prophetic dreams. So there's your concept right there. You have a cosmic entity who knows of a great evil that's coming, but since he has no physical presence in the real world, he can't do anything about it. Wesley Dodds can do something about it, but since he doesn't have super strength or any sort of real Superman-like powers, what he can do is limited. I'd like to specify, however, that the Wesley Dodds Sandman can only really work if you keep him in a 1930s setting, which I'm in full support of. In fact, that could open the door for a Justice Society series with Crimson Avenger and Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Who knows? The possibilities are endless.
Number 5. Animal Man.
Now here is where it gets interesting. The Animal Man is environmentalist Buddy Baker. His power is being able to tap into the life force of the Earth, called the Red in the comics, and this gives him the ability to take any power from any animal that does exist or has existed in the past. This can be anything from swimming like a fish, to flying like an eagle, to being as strong as an ox. That's all well and good, but there are two things in particular that make him very interesting as a character, and really make me want to see him in the movies. First of all, Baker is a family man, which is unique because usually superheroes only have the girlfriend/boyfriend or a parent who is most likely dead. So a character with a family would really stand out. And unlike most superheroes who do have familial connections, Baker actually seems to have his act together for the most part. So intrinsic is this to his character that him having a family actually survived the New 52's no family policy. But the really interesting part comes from when Grant Morrison wrote the character. Slowly but surely over the course of that series, Animal Man became aware that he was living in a fictional universe, that he was really just a character in a comic book. And instead of leading to wacky cartoon hijinks like it did with Deadpool, it led to existential cosmic horror. Go ahead, tell me you don't want to see that realized on film. So there you have it. Barring distaff counterparts and characters already in development, those are the characters I'd like to see show up in the DCEU. Well, those are the heroes at least. I might do another one of these for villains. You know, considering Suicide Squad is a thing. So what about you? What characters would you like to see show up in the movies eventually? Whether they're connected to this or connected to a completely different series. I really am curious. Leave a comment, make your own video, do whatever you want. Let's get this ball rolling. Maybe DC will actually pick up on what we want to see. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer, signing off. You know, I'd also really like Warner Brothers to put the Godzilla movies in the same continuity as the DC movies. I can dream.